This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Let's do it. My guest today is Robert Cartwright. Robert is the CEO at Wondra, an AI agent-driven Metaverse 2.0 ecosystem. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is Robert Cartwright. Super happy to be here today. Really awesome. And I'd say, and we'll probably get more into it during our podcast, I'd say that we're further ahead than Metaverse 2.0. I would say that we're at Metaverse 3.0 now.
Fantastic. Metaverse 3.0 sounds intriguing. I'm sure we'll talk about it. As you say, Robert, before we do that, let's get to know a bit about your good self. It'd be great if you could please introduce yourself. Love to hear some of your personal and professional backstory. I suppose what you've been doing in the lead up to becoming CEO at Wondra.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I have an undergrad in computer science. I've been working for IBM for some time in entrepreneurship and in IC chip development for IBM, where I've worked on projects for Toyota and for NASA, really building out some of this. But I think, it's not really these big corporations that excite me so much. It's really about metaverse and GameFi that really excites me the most. So it's great to be on your podcast today to talk about the metaverse and how some of this entertainment is.
Yes, indeed. Well, I can't wait to explore this more. I suppose we should do that by learning a bit more about what Wondra is. So give us the high level summary. What's the vision, Robert?
Yeah, so I think the vision is really creating the next generation of human interactions and creating how we live, function, think, operate. So it really, at a high level, it really is like a game changer and changes the way that we think about the world. What we're able to do is, when we think about the metaverse and Metaverse 2.0 and Metaverse 1.0, we've really seen Second Life and these opportunities that people have had throughout history to communicate with each other on the internet. And this really is a way that people can communicate in a way that's never been done before. So I see ourselves really as a social platform, a metaverse platform, and an AI platform adding together. And we have a roadmap and a way that some of this sort of connects together. It starts with Wonki, which we'll talk a bit more about. But yeah, I'd say that's a kind of high level. What are we? We're a future of communication. We're AI. We're digital twin, and we're metaverse. And I'll leave that kind of intriguingly because we'll sort of piece into that throughout today's talk, I assume.
We will indeed. And look, metaverse plus AI plus digital twins. Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. Doesn't it indeed sound intriguing? Let's do metaverse first, I suppose. I mean, obviously, we know what the metaverse thesis is. Explain what you mean, I suppose, by Metaverse 2.0, Robert, and feel free also just to give us an idea of where you see the kind of metaverse thesis as it stands at the moment and why you're still pursuing that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm reasonably old, but still younger. So I still remember during my undergrad, I did my thesis on it wasn't called the metaverse back then. It was called Second Life, and it was about creating a second digital twin or a digital kind of avatar of yourself. And obviously, a lot of these words are coming later in life, digital twinning and things like this. But it was really about creating second iterations of life and the way that you interact with things. And I think that's really where Wondra has sort of come from as a passion, going back, 10, 20 years, is playing those things made me talk to people. I communicated with people in the metaverse. And ultimately, those fundamental underlying ways that we see the metaverse, the way we communicate, is the fundamentals of some of social media. people are very insecure about themselves potentially. They potentially feel that because of certain situations, they haven't, gone through life in the way that they wanted to. And potentially they've had to make decisions, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is to be human, is make decisions. In the metaverse, it really allows us to play out both decisions in life. You can eat your cake and you can have your cake. You can take the red pill and you can take the blue pill. You can see what life would be like if you took the road less traveled and took the road more traveled. And I think that's really where the metaverse is a game changer. Is you can really play out different scenarios.
Yes, indeed. That makes sense. As we do build out the metaverse, you can indeed do exactly that. So you mentioned, how did you describe it? The digital twin concept, Robert. So this is quite interesting, and I've seen you also talk about this idea of soul-bound digital twins. I think Vitalik's talked about that as well. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but yeah, pretty interesting. Explain what a soul-bound digital twin is and how this ties in to the Wondra metaverse.
So I think on Twitter, digital twinning is essentially creating a digital version of yourself. So we have to kind of go back to kind of what is a digital twin. So a digital twin is essentially a digital version of something that exists in the real world. So historically, digital twins started out with factory operations or machinery. So for example, BMW, when designing a new engine for a car, can create a digital twin of this car. They can see how all these components would fit together to go inside, a limited space that you have in an engine bay. Or the same for, a rocket for an engine, for an airplane or something like this, you create a digital twin of this. What we're kind of expanding on that is, can you create digital twins of people? And we're hearing about some kind of cases which, are interesting and, begin to have a lot of sort of theoretical kind of questions and philosophy kind of around it. Is, do we really exist as humans? Are we just a series of automations? And it questions things like this. And can we live on forever inside of a digital twin of ourselves? Alan Turing's, can we tell the difference between talking to a real person or talking to a digital twin of somebody? And there are kind of edge cases for that, and different ways of using that. I think for me, the one that I really like as a thought is the CEO of Bumble. So I don't know where our users are based. It sounds like you're British. Is that right?
I am a Kiwi based in New Zealand, but listeners all around the world. The majority are the US, though, Robert.
Okay, yeah. So there's a platform called Bumble, which is very popular here in the States. And the CEO of Bumble believes that AI is the future of dating. So currently, we're using a kind of swipe-based system, and you look at pictures of people, and then you start chatting to people and you start to see if you build a connection. But this is actually really time consuming, tedious, and there's kind of millions of people in the world. And pretty quickly if you meet somebody, if you like them or not, either as a friend for a companion or a business partner or a coworker, or if they're, a sort of romantic partner. And AI can kind of understand other people, and start to, have conversations. One AI of you has a conversation with another AI of you. And if they start hitting it off and, start liking each other, then that person, kind of fits the way you see things. So, for example, if you're deeply Republican or deeply Democratic, or you're into, sports, or you're really into music and certain types, some of these things, are things that we can really click and resonate with. And a digital twin knows these things about you. They know that you go to political rallies for a certain party, or they know that you go to a lot of music events for a certain type of genre, or you enjoy hikes, or deep down your true thing that your passion is watching TV and eating, 10 kilos of nachos. AI can understand what you really want to do, and start matching you with friendship, companionship, and things like that. And I think that's really where the idea of the metaverse came from, is people were looking for companionship. As humans, we essentially need companionship. That's essentially the way that we're built, is we have to build companionship. And I think that this is really where Wondra is coming in, and really, changing the world in what it's doing.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Robert, and it makes me think. I have heard that thesis before. I guess the Bumble AI thesis, and the kind of the dystopian version of that is that, yeah, we'll all have our AI agents or digital twins effectively out there dating on our behalf, and kind of matching or mismatching with each other. But as the way that you've described it, it is actually but a much more potentially efficient way of doing things. Your digital twin does all the hard work, and matches you up with someone who you are much more likely to genuinely get on with, whether it's work-wise, creatively, or indeed romantically. So yeah, I think there's definitely something to that, Robert.
Yeah.
And awesome. I think it's the same with actually it reminds me with it's the same with ChatGPT. I'm sure a lot of listeners are using the different large language models, and it's funny, if you ask ChatGPT, you say something to it like, how old am I, where do I live, what are my passions and hobbies, and what am I worried about? It's incredible what it will say back to you, because it obviously remembers the context of its conversations with you, and that's really its power. But it's it's incredible how much these large language models know about you, just from you kind of pouring your deepest, darkest worries and thoughts into them.
Yeah. I mean, there is a saying that Google actually knows more about you than anyone else. People write into Google, is my body part too small? Am I depressed? Does this person like me? What to do if my boss secretly hates me? People write, all these, like, really their darkest secrets into Google in the form of questions, and Google really knows you better than anyone.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's bring it back to Wondra. Where are we in terms of this metaverse Wondra journey? Paint us a little bit of a picture, Robert, in terms of where we are on that. I don't know what you call it. Is it a roadmap, or the voyage into the metaverse? Where are we on that journey, and what is the steps that we've taken, and what are the next steps on that journey?
Yeah, so I think really, where are we on that, and what are the steps we've done, is really we built out a lot of functionality to this. So, but again, a lot of this takes time to build into where it needs to be. So we're not quite where we need to be on this yet, and that's essentially impossible to get there now. And I think that's really where we're struggling with is how to get there. And I think that's really, it's not a clear-cut way that we can do that. So what we're having to try and do is collect that data to create that digital twinning.
Yeah, that's right. So how do you do that? What kind of data is involved?
So that really starts with Wonki. So Wonki is really, like a lot of things don't start with a finished product. So for example, driverless cars, starts with collecting data, and things like Tesla have been collecting data for a long time to try and put this stuff together. And this is really, again, the same with Wondra. We're basically trying to put Wonki out there as a sort of form of kind of like ChatGPT, where you ask it questions, and then from all these questions that you're asking it, it's then able to understand what you're doing. So once you start building out more and more questions and asking it these, like we were talking in Google, your deepest kind of questions, your deepest desires, but also just genuine things, like, I want to win this sale at work, and here's like my questions, right? And I want to get a raise. What should I write? And I want to what's the quickest way to get to Target? How do I make spaghetti bolognese? I just watched the movie The Shining, and I thought it was a great horror movie. What are some other classic 1970s horror movies that I might like? All of these things are kind of going to be a new way of living. So I like to think about this kind of in the concept of like servants. So in the Middle Ages and throughout history, kind of having servants and maids, and even in modern society, is like glorified as this great thing to have all these people to help you and do anything you want. And nowadays, this is possible with digital assistants. Digital assistants are like a way that we can actually have people do the things we don't want to do. I mean, for example, math is for a lot of people really hard. I mean, I ask you, what the square root of like, I don't know, 94 is. That's probably going to take you some time. But if you ask Wonki, our digital assistant, Wonki can answer that in a fraction of a second. If I ask, how long to boil an egg, how long to do all of these things, Wonki can do this. And there are other AI assistants. Wonki is not the first AI assistant. Apple, Google, Amazon, and many, many other people have built virtual assistants. And I think the question is, what virtual assistant do you want to use, and why do you want to use that virtual assistant? That really has to come into the question. So you don't just say, oh, there's Wonki, and Wonki is another virtual assistant. There's got to be a reason why you would want to use Wonki, because another virtual assistant in the world doesn't actually, make the world a better place. It really has to have some deep meaning. And that's really where Wonki comes in. Wonki is going to be the beachhead, the data collection for this sort of digital twinning and digital souls of ourselves. And that starts with collecting data from yourself. And then also, it incentivizes you. So I don't know if you have this in Australia, but in, for example, the US, credit cards give you money. So for example, if you use like an American Express card, you get some points for booking with flights. On an Amex card, you get like 5% cash back. And maybe use like a Amazon card and you get 5% back at Whole Foods, which is a grocery store in the US. And you can get all these different cash back for using certain credit cards. Wonki is a bit like that. We give you points for using Wonki. So not only do we collect data that we can then use for digital twinning, which is awesome, we also incentivize you for it and give you points for using Wonki, because you putting in these questions into our LLM is really helping to improve Wonki and build Wonki out into kind of where Wonki is today.
Got it. That's interesting. And yeah, funny enough, because my next question, Robert, was going to be, there are various different metaverses out there that are at different stage of their ecosystem rollouts. But the big challenge is getting users to come and, set up accounts or come and play or, take part. And of course, as I suppose you've identified, one of the keys to doing that, really, it does come down to incentives, right? So that's one of the ways that you will, I guess, initiate the Wondra ecosystem. And Wonki. Yeah,
and I think in the past we saw the original kind of Second Life, things like this really build out. World of Warcraft, these massive multiplayer online games. But then we saw in, a few years ago with the sort of crypto bull run, we saw a lot of people try to capitalize on this, get some quick cash, claim to be some kind of metaverse, and it had low user adoption. And people just kind of bought in some tokens just to kind of get rich off it. And that really doesn't work, which is, again, why we're really aligning incentives and tokens with engagement, because ultimately, I mean, I remember in business school they really talked about. I went to Columbia, which is in a sort of US business school based in Manhattan, and they really talked a lot about if you take something away from somebody and they're willing to pay for it, like they don't want it to go away. They're like, take my money. I'd rather pay than make it go away. You have a product that people really want. And I think that's really where we're trying to pitch Wonki at is, can it become something so entwined into our daily lives that we couldn't live without it? And many things are like that in our lives today. I think a lot of social media platforms have really become a part of our lives. And I see that Wonki and the metaverse can really be a part of our lives. The way that populations are, the isolation, mental health is a real problem, especially, I mean, maybe it's not as bad in New Zealand, but, in places like the United States, mental health really is a problem. And there's really a human culture that's really truly sometimes evil, which is to kick a guy when he's down. And I think the metaverse really allows people to find like-minded people who say, wow, I really see it your way, and give you kind of advice and support and find your tribe. I read this book called Tribes, and it's really about finding your tribe. And I think the metaverse really allows you in a way that you could never do before. You don't have to conform to society in the same way anymore. You can find the tribe that matches you.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it, Robert. And that's what I think that's what life is all about, because there's so many people in the world, so many different tribes, but that is what the digital world enables. And I guess that is the digital thin thesis as well. You mentioned that the tokens, and there'll be some incentives behind these. I can see there's 2 different tokens, aren't there, Robert?
Yeah, so there are actually 3 things. There are points, which you get for using Wonki. Those points can then be kind of our first token. So these points can be converted into our token. And then that token can then be converted into our other token that will be tradable with in exchange with US dollars. So we're really building like a 2-tier system on it for the tokens. So think about it kind of like getting credit card points, and then those credit card points can then be cashed out into either flights or buying like a new computer, for example. So we really have a 2-tiered system. And then we have, just like you have with foreign exchange rates, and I'm sure your New Zealand listeners are really, familiar with foreign exchange rates, is essentially different rates apply based on market demands and market factors. So the more popular Wonki gets, the more popular the token will become, and then the more it will have a sort of intrinsic value. So I think this is really a great way of rewarding people. And I think it's also a great way of rewarding early people, because people who believe in something early are the people who should be rewarded the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Also a great way of putting it. Just to divert for a second, do you I'm sure you do, Robert, you keep up with, I guess, the wider developments and AI? Like, I guess I'm not sure if you've read, have you read that situational awareness paper by that guy, Leopold, who was he was an OpenAI employee. I think he got fired, but he's written this fascinating paper called Situational Awareness, as I say, but it's essentially kind of mapping what he thinks is going to happen across the next decade as we, essentially do unlock the genie in the bottle, and true AI is created.
Yeah. And I think, I assume all your listeners are really reading up a lot, because essentially the future is unwritten. And this really is, one of the most exciting times that we're living in. And I guess everyone's always said it's one of the most exciting times, but
that's right.
It truly is now.
It does feel like it, yes.
Yeah,
couldn't agree more. All right. Well, look, as we finish up this part of the podcast, Robert, just again, for people that are interested by the Wonki Wondra digital twin idea, and they want to, start to play around with what you guys are building, what is the best place for people to go and learn more? Where should they go? What should they do?
So that is a great question. What I would recommend is there are two great places to go. The Wondra website, which is the home of Wonki, feels like a bit of a tongue twister. So that's wondraai.com is our website. And then if you go onto our website, we have some kind of really cool information. And you can also connect your wallet and sign in and find out so much more about what we're doing there. And then also what we have is our X account, which was formerly called Twitter. It's weird. I still see it sometimes on the internet as Twitter, and I sometimes see it as X, and it's so weird. And X is because of social media, like searching. We use things like Canva for doing graphics design. But if you search for like X templates, I mean, it's such a small word. It doesn't actually show anything useful. So anyway, I like the old name, but I guess it's X now. So we also have a beautiful X account with some really kind of inspirational pictures showing kind of a futurized version of the world. We also give a lot of kind of information about product updates, where we're getting on the product. We also talk about other talk shows like this one here that we're having. And we talk about sort of phases of development. And this is where we'll talk about sort of tokens and where you guys can get involved in that. And really all of that will be on our X account. So our X account is Wondra_AI. And that, again, is a great place to find lots of information. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me on X as well. So I'm also on X, so you guys can DM me on X, and also on LinkedIn. So I think basically social media is pretty awesome. And then soon you guys can also meet me in the metaverse, and we can either me or my digital AI twin, and you guys can have conversations with me at scale with my AI twin in the future. So that'll really be a futuristic world.
Yes, indeed it will. I like it a lot. All right. Well, thank you, Robert. I think what we do now is we will finish off the show by running you through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
Hot take round. Okay, that sounds fun. Is this like the hot ones with the wings?
It's very similar, actually, Robert, except I'll be asking you some questions that are slightly more crypto related. But yeah, the same kind of thesis. I just want you to give me your honest hot take style answers. I can't offer you any hot sauce, but yeah, I'll instead just dish up question one for you, which is, Robert, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Wow. I think, where do I stand on this? I think it's really hard to see what the future will hold on this. I think I'm optimistic and positive towards it, but I also feel that there's a lot of other chains out there. So, becoming first to market has sometimes caused newer, more leaner, creative, innovative things to come in there. So I see so many innovative people in the space there. I do think that there is a possibility that we see some new innovation taking that top spot in the future. But I'm also, I wouldn't bet against the market leader there.
Yeah, very well said. All right. What would you say, Robert, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
People talk about Web 2, Web 3, and ultimately things are going to shift to Web 3. This isn't a will Web 3 take off, it's a when. And I am certain that this decentralized model of the future is the future. And I'm certain that AI is a critical part of that. And I'm certain that, the incumbent slow ways of doing things, like a slow tugboat, will be outmaneuvered by cool, innovative things that people want, because at the end of the day, populace wins, and people want freedom. People want to be able to control what they're doing.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, look, Bill Gates famously said we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. With that in mind, what does the blockchain space look like? Well, not even blockchain, let's say, Web3, Metaverse, Wondra. What does it look like in 10 years' time?
I think that I've really been thinking a lot about today, actually. I went and watched a hackathon today and saw some really amazing startups there. And I think really what we're seeing there is innovation. And I think for a long time I've thought, which even there they didn't talk about, and I've not really heard anyone talk about, is video is the next thing. I really think the next big thing is video. We're talking to Wonki, we're talking to ChatGPT, we're talking to Siri, and Siri's writing things. And then we also have YouTube and TikTok, which are making content. I believe in the future, this content will be made by AI. So if I want to watch a documentary to understand, the history of ABC Company, I can watch a fully fledged, documentary of the highest quality, like, National Geographic kind of documentary about, the most niche things. I can watch a biopic of, some person that I'm going to meet for a business dinner. This AI thing can really generate content, generate video. It can listen to information, listen to text. It's detective journalism. It's all of this put together in a way that we've just never ever seen before. And I think that this is something that's truly exciting and groundbreaking and innovative there.
Yeah, fascinating. All right. Well, another way of thinking about this, of course, is this quote by William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Robert, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think a lot about. Is we live, or at least I live in the US. The US is a very rich country and has been for a very long time. And I'm originally British, and again, that's been a very rich country for a very long time. And the quality of life that we experience and the access to technology and the way that our governments are, as much as we complain about them, they're still pretty good. And that's not true everywhere in the world. That really isn't. And I've traveled a lot around the world. I've been to, Southeast Asia. I've been to Africa. I've been to a lot of these countries. And the concept, the mindset, the way of people's lives, right? I mean, there are still places where people have dirt floors, and they're ashamed to tell people that they have dirt floors, even though there are charitable organizations that would help them, because they're just so ashamed of this fact. And it really, the world is not distributed nicely. And some of these big wealthy countries have really, historically helped themselves more than others, and I think that Web3 really has an opportunity to not be out to get people, and not be in it for them. We see China building roads and building, cell phone infrastructure in Africa, and we see the same with the US in South America. And it's worked out really well for the US, and it's worked out really well for China, and it hasn't worked out so well for these people. I think with the concept of Web3 and people being able to build out micro loans and being able to build out finance things and being able to build out education and opportunities to work in different sectors, I think we could really redistribute the way that we think about things. And I think that this in my lifetime will be a game changer. I think it scares some of the Western people, because I think that there are some brilliant minds in the world that just don't have a voice. And Web3 will really give those people a voice.
Yeah, very well said again. Thank you, Robert. The final question for you is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
I mean, it's got to be 1984. I read that a very long time ago. I possibly should watch that again. But yeah, 1984. I think, I actually went to boarding school, and I think basically boarding school and 1984 are basically the same. Everyone kind of watches you, and I think technology does watch us. And I question if that's the best thing. I question that. I know that other countries monitor and film everyone. Does that mean making a traffic violation that I should be constantly like watched and if I go slightly over the speed limit, I should be immediately fined? I'm only human. Or is that just pushing us towards robots? Driving our cars because if I go over the speed limit by 1 mile an hour, should I be fined for that? And should cameras see that? And should they be watching me that closely? And I think people really have a question on that, right? I think the same with tax. Historically, a lot of people ran restaurants that possibly didn't pay all the tax they were supposed to. Now, with the way that everything works through digital banking, we get all the tax, we get all the things the way that they're supposed to be. I don't know if that's the perfect ideation the way that it is now, or if what the perfect balance is of that.
Yep. Fantastic. Great way to close out the show, Robert. And well, to close out the show, why don't you just once again, please share your Twitter profile or your X profile, or wherever else you like to hang out online. And again, just tell people where they can go to dive into the wonderful world of Wondra.
Yeah. So again, Wondra_AI. Is our Twitter. So if you guys would love to join us there, awesome place to be. Would love to see you guys there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. That was Robert from Wondra. Fascinating discussion. That was cool. Digital twins, great concept. And I do I like the idea of your people's digital twins out there in the world dating each other or verifying each other before coming back to you and saying, hey, I recommend this person. You can totally see that happening. Anyway, we reach the end of another show. Thank you for listening. This was The Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. Bye for now. See you.